So here we are, video lecture 9. This is secular music, high and low. That is courtly and everybody else. We're going to spend more time with courtly because guess why? That's mostly what we have written down. We are still in the 11th and 12th centuries, 12th and 13th centuries, heading towards 1300. That's the next video lecture. We should not assume that all of the music of the Middle Ages was sacred. It would be easy for you to walk away from this course thinking that, because that's mostly what we've done so far, sacred music. It's because that's what we have written down. Who were the people that knew how to write? Going from Rome, Imperial Rome, into the Middle Ages. The monks. They were the ones who kept the art of writing, and they wrote in Latin, which was the language of the church. So what are they going to think is most important to write down? Church stuff in Latin. Now that's not going to stop a lot of monks from also writing down secular stuff. We're going to talk about some not very sacred things that monks wrote down in Latin in just a little bit, and it's going to potentially revisit with you in the next semester when you get all the way to Karl Orff and the Carmina Burana. So it does all connect, but you got to stick with it here, back in the 1200s. Most of the secular music, the music that people just sang and played and used for working and praising your noble feudal lord and singing your heart out because you're heartbroken, these things are done in the vernacular language, whatever language you speak, and it's not a priority to write it down. If you're the butcher singing a song about drinking, you're not going to write it down because you can't. And your noble lord riding through, or his steward or his clerk, is not going to write it down because they have other things to do. If you're lucky, some bored monk who's journeying between monasteries, maybe he'll write it down, but maybe not. So we don't know tons about secular music. The earlier back we go, the less we know. We have pictures, woodcuts, paintings, illuminations, and manuscripts, but sometimes it's like somebody's making these drawings of people playing instruments, and A, they don't actually play them themselves, so they don't know how to hold the instrument. Like that Walmart clarinet kid playing, you remember the picture, was it last year? Little kids, clarinet, buy your clarinet at Walmart, and it's backwards, like the mouthpiece is backwards. Every musician was just like, how stupid are you? But people don't know. So maybe the person drawing it doesn't know, or they say, I'm going to cram every possible instrument into this little picture, when in fact they never all sat together in the same room. So we start to have to make our best guess. We assume that secular music was monophonic in this time period, around 1200, before even 1100. But there are some suggestions that probably there was some polyphony, some heterophony, some accompanying and decoration by instruments of things people were singing. They probably didn't all play the same tune. What kind of fun is that? So we're going to start by looking at knightly poets in the courts of the Languedoc, southern France, Provence. Languedoc, southern France. Doc, is the Provence way of saying yes. The Languedoc, northern France, becomes oui, the word for yes. That becomes modern French, the Languedoc. But the Languedoc is the southern provincial Provence, France. And we're going to go to the court of Eleanor of Aquitaine. Eleanor of Aquitaine, she lived from 1122 to 1204. She married first King Louis VI of France. The marriage was annulled when she had no children. Failure. And so she sort of brushed that off and went and married Henry II of England. That is why France, southern France, and Normandy and England get tied together over the centuries. Like, are these the same country now? Are they different countries? I mean, people fight not just one war, but like war after war after war. Because France says, see, England belongs to us. And England says, no, see, Eleanor married your guy. Provence belongs to... Okay, another day. Eleanor of Aquitaine encouraged a social environment among the nobility that had its own sort of set of manners. We start to talk about sort of a language of chivalry. If you've heard the phrase courtly love, this is a modern phrase. The original phrase was fin amour, fine love or refined love. She and her daughter Marie, especially at the court of Poitiers in southern France, this idea, and I'm going to post this article on courtly love that you can read. I think it's kind of interesting from a modern perspective. I've actually had people walk out of my humanities class because they were so shocked at what this article said. So, teaser. You thought it was all Game of Thrones, but Eleanor of Aquitaine, here she is. So they had these ideas that they sort of developed. They set about and said, you know, we're all sitting around here. Oh, thunder. We're all sitting around here in our court, and let's have a set of manners, a way we behave to each other. We're just going to kind of all do it. It was the fashion. Like the mean girl thing and the, I'm so out of date, I don't know any fashions. So here are some norms. Think about nobility you would get married to another noble because you were told to get married to another noble. It was a political alliance, not because you loved somebody. I'm thinking here of, perhaps a national leader who might be married to a wife who's just doing it because that's the advantageous thing to do. Not at all in our day and age, at all on the news, no. So you're not necessarily married to someone you're in love with. You might be if you're lucky, but it's a political convenience, or it's about power and money and influence. Married women had limited rights. You could actually have more rights. You had more political or legal rights as a spinster. A spinster would have been a single woman, unmarried woman, who spun wool. I'm a spinster. I mean, I don't spin, but I would have in the Middle Ages, because why? I could actually have a business. I could own a wool spinning business of my own, where I couldn't have a butchery. I couldn't have a bake shop. That was for men. I couldn't be a silversmith or a blacksmith. It'd be tricky to be a musician even. These were all men's fields, but spinning and weaving, women could do this. So that's why a spinster, that's where we get the name spinster. It's actually kind of a cool title. Yay, I'm independent. But once you're married, nope, you belong to your husband. You could own property as a noblewoman through your husband. Your husband sort of took charge of your property. That's why you want to marry a well-to-do noblewoman if you were a guy, because they've got all the property. There is in the Middle Ages, in the medieval church, there is a strong thread of misogyny. It comes through this very patriarchal Roman and Jewish worldview, and it's the way to read both Old and New Testaments in the Christian Bible. The idea the medieval church thinkers focused on how sinful humanity was, and so Eve is the original sinner. It says it right there in the second chapter of Genesis. There's two Genesis stories, right? One is just man and woman, and the other one is Adam and Eve. And Eve she's the one. It's her fault. So the idea is that the whole sinful humanity history is all Eve's fault. So it's not to say that everyone in the Middle Ages was misogynistic, but there is this slant that way. And as I just said, medieval society was strongly patriarchal. It was very difficult for women to be queens, for example, the sole ruler without a king. It was difficult for women to inherit property directly without having a male representative sort of be the person in charge. So Eleanor of Aquitaine and her daughter Marie encouraged this other code of manners called gentillesse, good manners, gentility. We also think of it as chivalry or knightly behavior. So a noble shows true gentility when he behaves courteously towards weaker people. Because otherwise, what do you do with weak people? You crush them. I think heroes are people who don't get captured. If you don't know the historical reference that I'm referring to, go watch the recent news from the last 2 years. That's not a code of chivalry. That is the idea that if you are strong, beat the crap out of everybody that's weak because you can. The code of gentillesse says, you know, maybe I should help the old lady across the street, or maybe we shouldn't pillage the peasants or rape the women because they're weaker than us who are armed. We should be courteous to them. Even though we don't need to be courteous, we will be courteous. So this evolving sort of out of context code of chivalry. Along those lines, I'll just give you a quick highlight here. Somebody wrote down, and I've copied from somebody else's lecture, 6 rules of courtly love. There were many more rules of courtly love, but they had not just this general code of behavior, but how would I, a noble woman, fall in love fashionably with a noble man? And how would the noble man fall in love fashionably? Well, here are some rules, or guidelines. Marriage is no deterrent to love. If you're married to somebody, Sir Beef, and he's a toad, you could fall in love with somebody else. Doesn't matter that you're married. That's the point at which I had a student walk out, and I'm not saying that you should, we're talking about the 13th century. Love is not possible for someone who cannot be jealous. If I don't make you jealous, we're not really in love. It's very drama, right? Drama llama. The value of the love increases with the difficulty of its attainment. So if we have to sneak around and I can only see a glimpse of you from 3 castles away, and my creepy old husband won't let me look out the windows ever, and I can just, that's more desirable. We went through hardships in order to acknowledge our love. Thoughts of the beloved never leaves the true lover. If you say, hey, how about going to McDonald's? You say, no, I'm thinking of the fair Guinevere. Come on, let's go to McDonald's. No, I'm thinking, even while I'm at McDonald's, this set of fries reminds me of the golden color of her hair. You never stop thinking of the beloved. 2 people, last rule I'm going to give you, there's more, but 2 people may love the same person. So, I'm thinking here, Bachelor, this TV show, whatever it is, that show. Perfectly desirable. 2 people in love with it, fine. Now, it doesn't actually, none of this means that this love was actually physically consummated. It was all, I'm sure plenty of it was, but that actually was crossing a line. You're not supposed to get physical. Maybe I would cherish your handkerchief. It's all I have of you. We could never actually kiss or anything else. But I've got your handkerchief, and I'll take it with me to bed. I mean, it's extreme, but it is kind of funny. Well, it's funny. And it also sets the tone for a lot of attitudes going forward in the centuries about love and reactions against those attitudes as well. So we're going to look then at some music from the courts of this gentillesse, this courtly love, this fin d'amour. I think I can't remember, which examples. Okay, I got that. I'm ready now. We're going to look at an example by a guy named Bernard de Ventadorn, who died around 1200. Again, we don't know when these guys lived. The piece that you need to listen to is Conviela la Zeta Mover, and it's example 1-10. It's a canso. We had people, nobles, and semi-noble poets, starting with the nobles, who write these songs, this poetry that fits in with the courtly love, and they sing them. These are the troubadours. And they also would travel from castle to castle, not sort of like incognito, but hey, I'm a noble, here I am Sir Giacomo. I'm going to sing a song I sang at home. I composed this back at home to the Lady Eleanor, and I go to visit this other castle in a different place. I'm going to sing you this, let me sing you this love song I wrote for my girl back home. And so we have this, that's how the music spreads. Being a troubadour is actually a great cover for being a political spy. That is true, actually. Because people want like, oh, Sir Giacomo, when are you going to come visit us and sing your cool new songs? Sir Giacomo's going to come, and he's going to keep his eyes open and say, oh, there seems to be an alliance between Spain and Provence. So political intrigue, cool. The knightly poets, the troubadours, are imitated at lower levels of society, so that someone who is not noble but a good singer could also be a troubadour or trouvère. The other word in northern France is trouvère. If somebody then took the same songs and did their best and sort of took it to the next level down to the inn, the public house where everybody's just hanging out, they might be called a jongleur, which looks like a juggler. They would do tricks and sing and play and dance, but they might imitate some of these songs. So you need to listen to Bernard de Ventadorn. Because it's a song, you need to read the text. If you've had French, you will find this really weird looking. It does not quite look like French because this is pre-French, and it's also the other region, it's Languedoc. The one that I'm going to talk a little bit more about right now is the song by Beatriz, Contessa de Dia, which was written, we think, around 1180. And it's called A Chantar, and I've added this link to the Cougar View unit that we're in right now, because the performance style that I found at this one performance online is really neat. Oh, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So this song, A Chantar, by Contessa de Dia, it was written in Occitan. It's kind of like Languedoc. It's pretty close. And the text, the contract, we don't know who she is. Was she a noble woman? Yeah, we think so. Was she a traveling troubadour? Did she actually travel around like a troubadour? Urban legend says, yeah. Maybe? Nobody knows, actually. So she apparently was in love with one noble guy named Rimbaud. Or maybe she was in love with a different guy named Rimbaud, but was actually married to a guy named Adhemar. I mean, it's just like, it's so messy. It's like housewives of, I don't know what. So the translation of the poem, if you give it a look in the text, I'll just sort of summarize it here. Listen to what she's saying. I must sing of what I do not want. I am angry with the one I love, because I love him more than anything. Neither mercy nor courtesy moves him. Neither does my beauty move him, or my worthiness, or my good sense. He's not paying any attention to me. My beauty doesn't do any good. If I'm nice to him, it doesn't make any sense. If I'm kind to him, it doesn't help. Sensible, forget it. He doesn't care about me. For I am deceived and betrayed, this jerk, as much as I should be if I were ugly. He's treating me like some ugly girl. Okay, that's harsh, but I take comfort, she goes on, because I never did anything wrong. Now she's talking right to him. I never did anything wrong to you, Rimbaud or Adhemar, whoever you are. I love you more than Seguin loved Valença, these mythical characters we don't know. And I'm pleased that I conquered you in love, because you, apparently, he had loved her. And now he doesn't. But she won, she says. You are the most worthy. You are arrogant to me in words and appearance, and yet you're so friendly to everyone else. How modern does this text sound? That's crazy. I wonder at how you have become so proud. By that, she means so, like, snooty. You've become so proud towards me, and I have reason to lament. It's not right that another love take you away from me, no matter what is said or granted to you. So she's complaining because he has left her and is now in love with somebody else. And just, I was here first. I loved you. I still love you, damn it. And he's, well, she's singing this lament to him. Now, this poem is pretty cool. This song is pretty cool because of the 4 poems of Contessa de Dia we have, this is the only one that actually has notated music. It's really cool that we have this. If you listen to the performance style, I gotta make sure I don't lose my notes. Listen to the performance style. It sounds rather, the performers that made this clip have chosen to sing it and perform it in a rather Middle Eastern flavored way. Why? Because the trade routes between Europe and the Middle Ages were ever increasing. The Crusades, which were wars levied by Europe towards the Middle East, especially towards Jerusalem, to free Jerusalem from the Arabs, from the Muslims, and make Jerusalem a Christian capital, the capital of the East. Everybody has fought over Jerusalem, as far as I can tell, all through history. So again, look at the modern news. But so the Crusades, they're sending knights and kings. Everybody's going to go win their fortune and fight a foreign war. So just because you're fighting a war doesn't mean you're not also trading. You're having contact with another culture. And so it's not unlikely that singing styles from Arabian musical styles of different kinds would have drifted back just as the spices and roses and fruit and fabric were drifting back, and just as other things were heading off from Europe to the Middle East. So that's why they sing it that way. Those songs of the troubadours are considered the high forms, the ones sung by the nobles. We also know there was low music, or light poetry, if you don't want to be so top down. Stuff sung by your ordinary jongleurs and things like that. After about 1250 CE, the era, we see music written down for the regular person, the town, if you will, the merchants. They're starting to become perhaps more literate. We think that these town songs could have probably been sung with a fiddle, and maybe also were sung and people would dance while they sang, or maybe the singers themselves would dance as entertainment. The composer we're going to focus on here is one of my favorites, Adam de la Halle. Adam de la Halle was a pretty cool guy. He had learned how to compose polyphonic sacred music in the Notre Dame style, like Periton. He's the same contemporary, Lane and Periton, we just previous lecture. So he learned all this stuff. Maybe he sat next to Anonymous 4 in class. He was really skilled at writing sacred polyphony. And so he took this very polyphonic style that was for sacred music, for church music, and he started to wind it into his secular music. He's crossing this divide that up till now it's kind of hard to tell if anybody's crossed it before. Can I take sacred things and do them in the pub? Apparently you can. So because he's writing sacred polyphony styles, he needs to write it down. Thank God he wrote it down, because we have it. We can perform it. The piece that you have in your anthology is 1-15B, Dieu soit en chaste. He writes in a form. We actually have a musical form here. We have 3 forms that people were writing songs in. These are called the forme fixe. Forme fixe. Fixed forms. That is, I can tell you how this piece is going to go. That doesn't sound weird to you because you're used to playing sonata forms or singing arias that are ABA or whatever. This was a big deal. We can predict how the words fit and how the music comes back. The 3 formes fixes are the ballade, the rondeau, and the virelai. I'm using the French words, not the Languedoc words that your book used, because you don't speak Languedoc, do you? Most of you. So he writes a ballade, Dieu soit en chaste, and we would say the form of this ballade, sorry, it's a rondeau. Excuse me. It's not like a modern rondo form that I will show you later in the semester, which has, which is represented by other things. But this rondo form, rondo, in this forme fixe, we would say the music comes in a big A and a B, and then the A comes back but with different words, so it's little a, and then the original words A, and then new words, A, and new words, B, and the original A and B. So it's A, oh, excuse me, let me start again. A, B, A, B, A, B. I remember spending hours fruitlessly trying to remember that in music history. You don't have to remember that, but write it down because it's handy. Someday in grad school you'll thank me. That's the form of that Dieu soit. The ballade had a form that would work like this. A, B, C. C would be the refrain that always comes back. Little a, different words to the same music twice, and then totally different music, and then a refrain, C. The virelay is kind of cool. It looks like a ba, A, B, B, A. Obscure? Yes. Where could I find this written down? Page 61. Page 61. What do these pieces that Adam de la Halle, what are the style characteristics? At last, we can have actual style characteristics. 1, lyric poetry. I don't always let you put stuff about words in as a style characteristic, but there is actual poetry and it's lyric. It's not about God. It's about emotion and love and whatnot. 2, relatively elaborate parts. There are actually composed out parts for all these different voices. If we were improvising in the pub, a secular song, I could sing another part, but I'm not working it out carefully. I might sing a part and then stop singing. These are worked out all the way through the end. His texts are largely syllabic, and we hear a lot of meter, rhythmic patterns that start to sound like dance rhythms. The more popular, I think, example of his work is the Jeu de Robin et Marion, the game or the play of Robin and Marion, which is written as fake folk music. It's written by this guy, Adam de la Halle, and it's kind of told from a nobility out there pretending to be peasants. Let's go play outside and have sheep and things. Because the nobles look at the peasants and say, yes, oh, they're uncomplicated by all this courtly love stuff. They just have a romp in the hay, and they don't worry about it. Let's go be like them. So that's what this piece is about, Robin Hood and Maid Marian, and it's kind of complicated with Maid Marian falling in the clutches of some villain, and she sort of saves herself, and Robin gets all tangled. But it's pretty cool. It's one of my favorite examples. I can still sing whole chunks of it from my music history course so many decades ago. So you should listen to that as well. I don't think that one's in your anthology, but I'm gonna give you the score. So the trouvère or troubadour tradition ends up lasting a long time, all the way through the 1300s, through another composer we're gonna look at named Machaut. And it also not only was used by Guillaume Machaut and Philippe de Vitry, but it also spread to other areas of Europe, like Germany, what would be Germany, where we have the Minnesingers and the Meistersingers. This is the very topic that Wagner bases his opera on, the Meistersinger von Nuremberg, this idea of professional, sort of noble singers. Yes. And that is all. Here ends lecture number 9.